Imagine that you do not know where exactly your family comes from, what exactly happened to your father. You grew up not remembering much about your father. You ask your mom, she's not willing to talk about it. There's no one else who would want to talk about it with you. And all you have is your mom who is constantly working, trying to make a living for the two of you. And when you finally finish high school, you do not get through the university exams. Imagine that. Then imagine that you're someone who cannot express things, who cannot talk to another person about how you're feeling, about your sentiments, your emotions, your thoughts. Instead, you just keep everything inside and you just go, I'm okay, I'm alright. You have this huge wall in front of you that you just, around you, that you just won't bring down. And you're the person that you love the most, that you have given everything to, decides to move countries, but you cannot follow her because you're not sure if that's what you want to do, but they move anyway. And later you see that they have moved on with someone else, while you're still stewing in your misery and being upset about things, still unable to talk about it. Imagine that you have this need to try and analyze yourself just so that you can feel a little closer to your father. The story today is the story today is of Flo, an American translator based in Japan, of Kyo, a high school university entrance exam failure, or Ronensai, as they say, a samurai without a master, and of Ayako, a grandmother who's missing some fingers. Today, we're going to be talking about Four Seasons in Japan by Nick Bradley. The story starts out with the American translator named Flo, who is talking about her recent failure. She translated a work, she translated a Japanese work into English, and it wasn't very popular. So she has this voice inside her who's telling her, "You're a failure, you're never going to be good for anything, you're a failure, you're a failure, you're a failure." And she feels very stressed, like she's not good for anything, as if she can never do anything right. And on top of what she's feeling, on top of that feeling, she has her girlfriend, her long term girlfriend, Yuki, a Japanese, is moving to the States, the United States of America, and she wants Flo to join her, but she is not willing. Yuki and Flo together, they have a cat that they have adopted years ago named Lily. So Flo wants to be with Yuki, but she doesn't want to move to the United States. And she cannot, in her right mind, ask her, Yuki, to stay back for her. So she's very conflicted, emotionally and mentally and psychologically, whatever you say, however you say, she's very conflicted. One day she is in a train in Japan. She's taking a ride somewhere, and she notices that someone left a book. She picks up the book and takes it home and starts reading it. It's titled The Sound of Water. As she starts reading it, she realizes she wants to translate the book. Because why not? It's a very good book. But the thing is, in order to translate and publish a book, you need the permission from either the author or the publisher of the book. And Flo is unable to find both. So there's that dilemma. And while that is happening, her girlfriend moves out of the country. Then later, Flo finds out through Instagram that her girlfriend Yuki, or ex-girlfriend rather, has moved on with someone new. While she's still here, going through all these emotions, all the motions, unable to move on, stewing in her own grief and misery and pain, while her ex-girlfriend has moved on. So she's consumed by that as well. all the while trying to find Hibiki, the author of Sound of Water, the book that she's translating. Sound of Water starts with Q, a high school graduate who sat for his university entrance exams to go into med school, but he didn't make it. So he was branded a Ronensai, a samurai without a master. And in order to prepare for the next exam, that is another year later, he is sent by his mother to a small town in Japan called Onimichi, where his paternal grandmother is. So he's very anxious because he hasn't seen his grandmother in forever, and he's not sure how he would be able to adapt to the small town after staying for so long in Tokyo. And he is instructed by his mother to take the bullet train to Onimichi, but instead he takes a longer route and decides to take that. It would take around 2 days to reach Onimichi, and there's a stop. I think the stop is in Osaka. So he takes the train and and on the train he meets this really nice, bubbly, cheerful, active, hyper emotional girl who comes up to him and talks and tells him how good his drawing is, and the two go drinking. It's The girl reveals that she studies in Hiroshima University and is therefore a year or two older than Kyo. So while they're drinking, the girl suggests that they stay the night together, not as in doing anything, but rather just to save money. But Kyo has other plans. So what he does is, when the girl goes to the bathroom, he leaves money on the table for his food too. That money, an amount that covers the drinks and food, and then just runs off. He just leaves the girl, no word, nothing. And he goes to a bridge and looks down at the water, and he has this little frog with him, a handcrafted wooden frog with him that he takes, and he places it on the railing of the bridge and looks down. And it is at that bridge that uh, his father unalived himself years ago. So he was just looking at the water, looking at the frog. It turns out that the frog was handcrafted by his father as well. So he looks at the frog, he looks at the water, he's at the bridge trying to feel some sort of connection with his father, but he's not able to feel anything. So he leaves. The next day when he gets to Onimichi, he gets an earful from his grandmother Ayako, and he just apologizes. And when they get home, he realizes he lost the money that his mother gave him. So that was that pisses her off more than the fact that he did not inform any of them and then just went off and took another train. But Kyo's mother was smart enough to write his name and address on, and Ayako's address on the envelope, so they get the money back anyway. But uh, Ayako realizes how careless the boy is, and Ayako is pretty old. She runs a restaurant. Sorry, she runs a cafe in Onimichi town. The cafe is called Everest, and she does not hire any employees because she likes doing things by herself, and she likes a very limited number of customers per day. She does not like it during tourist season because there's always a lot of customers. So after he gets enrolled in the cram school, he goes to school in the morning. After that's done, he comes to the cafe, sits, and then studies, and then walks home with his grandmother. And at home, he studies or starts drawing. In the beginning, it's very hard for the two of them to even communicate properly because they don't know a lot about each other. They haven't seen each other for a very long time. And Ayako is very set in his ways. She wants to come off as stern, stubborn, very disciplined grandmother who is not gonna go easy on him. But Kyo wants a little bit of freedom. Freedom as in not to go around and do things, but rather freedom to express himself, freedom to ask questions about his father, her son. But she dodges the question. She does not like talking about it. And yeah, so there's this very palpable tension between the two at home and at work and in the cafe. But later, Ayako at one point sees her grandson drawing and realizes how good of a artist he is, and appreciates, compliments him, and then he also draws a little something for his grandmother, and she hangs it in his cafe. And the drawing is signed Hibiki. It's a pen name that Kyo goes by. So, and all the visitors who come to the cafe, they appreciate the drawing, and that's when Kyo starts getting work, you know, getting commissioned work. The first one is at a record player store run by Sato-san in Onimichi itself, and then there's Jun and a young couple who are turning their house, a building they have basically, into a hostel for tourists and visitors. They commissioned him to do that work there too, and he does it happily. And during tourist season, he helps his grandmother as well. The two get very close to each other. They start talking. They start playing a game of Go. And one day, and on their way home from the cafe, Ayako likes to take this route that is sort of on a mountainous area. It's a basically it's a walk uphill. So that's the route she likes to take, right? So she takes the route, and on top there's you get a very nice view of the city. And the best part is the cat alley, where her favorite cat, she has named him Coltrane. It's a black cat with only one eye, and she waits for him. Ayako has this belief that if Coltrane shows up, the day is gonna be good, no matter how pissed she is, right? Then as the days progress and months progress, Coltrane starts coming home. Like, not just at the cat alley, but at their home. And Ayako and Kyo start getting close to each other. They tease each other. They talk, and of course, there's a little friction every now and then, but they get along well anyway. Then one day, while Kyo was drawing and Coltrane was at the side, he hears a thud, so goes to check, and then he sees a book that is open, and then he opens it, and there's an article talking about how his father, a war photographer, committed suicide. He reads, and he also reads about how his grandmother used to be, but he decides he's not gonna ask his grandmother because then she'll just feel like he was snooping around, and that's how he saw the book. And the story proceeds. He's getting commission work. Ayako starts giving him a little more freedom, so he goes to the library as well and studies. And it was in one such evening when he was in the library studying that he hears a very familiar voice. He's unsure and thinks to himself, where did I hear it? Where, like, I know this voice, but whose is it? Say? And later it turns out it's Ayumi's. Remember the girl he sort of ditched at Osaka? So it's her, okay? And it turns out that she's working at Yamanako Cafe. I hope I'm saying that right, in Onimichi, part time while she's going to university. So the two of them, they start hanging out, going to movies, talking, sharing things. And one day, Sato-san, when he was at Ayako's cafe, he mentions that Kyo has a girlfriend. Then Ayako just her ears prick up, and she's like, "Who is this girl? Is this why his grades in cram school is dropping?" And then she gets very curious and intrusive, and so she decides, no, I need to go see this girl. I need to know what kind of girl my grandson is keeping company with. So he goes. So she goes. She closes her cafe early and goes to Yamaneko Cafe to meet Ayumi. And so when she's there, she notices really pretty, really friendly waitress, and she comes over, and Ayako asks, "Can I please know if Ayumi is working today?" Then the waitress goes, "I'm Ayumi." Then Ayako's face changes. She's like, "What are your intentions with my grandson? What are your intentions with my grandson? What do you want to do with him?" Then when Ayumi tells Ayako that it's nothing, she just likes his company, she likes talking to him, hanging out with him and all that. Then Ayako gets pissed. She thinks, and she says, if you were not serious with my grandson, if you do not like my grandson, stay away, let him focus on his cram school, blah 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 blah. Then Ayumi is studying to be a lawyer, right? So her lawyer persona comes out and she starts arguing, but then she realizes that she is basically at that moment she is a service provider, and Ayako, even though she hasn't ordered anything, Ayako the grandmother is a customer, so she behaves herself and she says okay. On the other side, Kyo Kyo is a bit upset, and he's feeling a bit low because Ayumi hasn't reached out. Ayumi hasn't messaged him for a while, and that is noticed by Ayako as well. So one day Ayumi texts Kyo and says something along the line of, "Hey, can we meet up?" And they do. And when they meet up, Kyo is a little taken aback, a little surprised, a little hurt to know that Ayumi doesn't want to see him till after his exams. Ayumi tries to reason out, saying that his exams are important, he should focus and all that. And Kyo says, "You're not taking away my concentration, you're not deterring me from studying and all that." But Ayumi doesn't listen. So he says, okay. And then they promise that after his exams are done, they're going to go on a trip. So Kyo returns home. He's sad. He's unable to understand what's going on, but he still continues with his exams, right? Sorry, with his studies at cram school and all. Then one day when he's home and he's cleaning, he notices a crumpled up Yamaneko cafe menu in his house, and then everything just clicks at that moment, and he gets so mad at his grandmother. And then from there, of course, he doesn't confront her, he doesn't ask her, he doesn't even question her, he just ignores her. He's pissed, he doesn't want to talk to her, so he ignores her. And when Ayako, the grandmother, tries to initiate a game of Go with him, he's like, "No, I don't want to play with you." And he's very short and curt with her like that, right? Then Ayako thinks that Ayumi is such a bad influence, such a floozy girl, that she could not keep her mouth shut about the fact that Ayako came and talked to her. And because of Ayumi, her grandson is now not talking to her, and she starts hating on Ayumi from deep inside her heart, right? Then Ayako again goes to Yamaneko Cafe to meet Ayumi. She goes there to meet Ayumi, and Ayumi tells her that, "I did not talk to Kyo about our encounter. I did not even mention you." And they come up with a plan to make things okay for Kyo, to make sure that Kyo feels okay. Then one day again, Ayumi texts Kyo saying, "I'm performing. Do you want to go? But it's important that you bring your grandmother along with you." He's excited, but he's a little confused, a little icked out by the fact that Ayumi wants him to bring his grandmother with him. He extends the invitation, and Ayako happily takes it, and the three of them, they meet at the station. Kyo is in his suit, Ayumi and Ayako are in their kimonos, and they go to another place. I forgot the name. They go there, and then Ayumi performs, and when Ayumi is performing, when Ayumi is performing, Ayako notices that Kyo is very relaxed and looking at her with eyes full of love and tenderness, and he realizes Ayumi is actually good for my grandson. And after the performance, they go and they eat, and then after they get back to Onimichi, Akio drops Ayumi off at the taxi stand, and then Ayako comes back to Ayako, where Ayako tells him that she likes Ayumi, and they both smile, and then things go okay. By now, Ayako has started talking about his father, Kenji, Kyo's father, with him, with Kyo, and the two talk about how his father was, how good a person he was, blah blah blah, his hobby for photography, and one of the biggest fear that Ayako has is that, see, when her son had a passion for photography, right? So she pushed him so hard, and then his passion turned into a job, and he became a war photographer, and he could not take it, so he ended his own life, and he was worried, and Ayako was worried that she might end up doing the same thing with her grandson, her grandson. So she tried to tread carefully. Then, after a while, she realizes that her incessant, desperate need for control was what was ruining things. So she decided to let go. She decided to just let it be, and she just wanted her grandson to be happy and fulfilled in life. It didn't have to necessarily be med school. If he doesn't want to go to med school, she was not gonna force him to. Then there's something called coming of age ceremony in Japan. So Kyo's coming of age ceremony. So over the year, Kyo's mother has cancelled on him a lot. So he wasn't expecting her to show up at his coming of age ceremony, but she does. And the three of them, Ayako, Kyo's mother, and Kyo, they go to the coming of age ceremony. They have a nice event, and then that night, Kyo tells his mother that it's not something he wants to do. Med school is not something he wants to do, and his mother gets mad, and she tells him how that artists, that we say starving artists for a reason. It's because they don't earn enough to feed themselves. And Kyo gets so mad, and then tells her, how, what would you know? You were so busy doing your job, you were so busy being a doctor, that you didn't even have time to raise a family. And then she is really pissed, and then Kyo just storms out of the house, and Ayako follows him. Then Ayako knows exactly where her grandson's gonna be, so she follows him to this little viewpoint on the top of the mountain. So she sees him. She sees him just sitting and drawing with one hand, and with other hand he's stroking Coltrane, who hadn't showed up for weeks by then, and they were worried, but she was glad to see him. And that's how the story ends. Oh, I forgot to mention. So remember, I said that Kyo was commissioned to work in a up and coming hostel of Jun and Imi. So when on the opening day of the hostel, what happens is Kyo has a surprise for his grandmother. So he has an exhibition there. He has his first ever exhibition there, and the exhibition is titled Ayako in the Mountains. It talks about how his grandmother survived on the mountains. So a little backstory. Kyo's grandmother grew up without a father. Her father died when she was very young, so she had a single mother who was always like, "Oh, woe is me." So her only solace was going out in the mountains, where she felt like she had a little bit of control. She felt free, and she felt like our world was an oasis of possibility. And when she was in the university, she met her husband, Kyo's grandfather. They fell in love because they had this really common, really passionate yearning for mountaineering, and they would climb. And after they had kids, they would take turns going for an expedition. So this particular mountain, Mount Tanekika, I can't remember, but So when Kyo's father was a few years old, Ayako urges her husband to go on an expedition, and he does, and he does not return. He basically dies up on the mountain. So Ayako makes it her, her goal to fulfill that. Later on, when her son Kyo's father grows up and he also exits, Ayako feels like she has nothing to live for, so she just goes up. She takes immense risk. She knew that the weather is not going to be good. She does not inform anybody of her passing. So what she does is she takes her son's or Kyo's father's ashes in a container like this. She takes the ashes in the container. She takes it up to the mountain where there's a memorial plaque dedicating to the expedition that her husband was in. She takes it there. She places the ashes there. It was because she wanted her husband and her son to be at least together in the afterlife. Then once she reached there, she could see the summit, but she could also see that dark clouds were looming over her, and the weather was probably not going to be good. But then the call of the summit was too strong, so she makes it to the summit, and on her way back, she struggles. She could feel her body warming up. So when you get severe hypothermia, or when you really 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 cold, severe hypothermia, your body starts producing a lot of heat, and you get a reflex hyperthermia, and you want to take your clothes off because it's so hot. So Ayako realizes that, and she just gives up. She does not give up. She keeps a small, what do you call this, she keeps a, so she tells herself, okay, I'm gonna make it till there, and that's her goal. Then once she makes it there, she keeps like small stretches of goals, and eventually she gets rescued with nothing more than a bit of hypothermia and frostbite on her fingers, and that's how she loses her fingers. Mm, that's how she loses her fingers. So when she sees the exhibition that was dedicated to her, at first she feels a bit of anger because she feels like something really personal was taken by Q and then showed to the world, but she also realizes the sentiment behind it and accepts it with a full heart. Okay, coming back to our main story, Flo, she is finally able to find the author of the book Sound of Water, the story of Ayako and Kyo, and she gets permission. It turns out Hibiki is actually a gay man and lives with his Scandinavian partner in Onimichi itself. And Coltrane is a real cat who's in Hibiki's house at the moment that Flo goes to visit, and Hibiki tells her that she can translate the book because obviously it's not important to him, but it seems like it's important to her, so she can go ahead and translate. But she does not. But he does not want his identity revealed, and that's how the story ends. I really liked the book. I loved it. I mean, other than Murakami, I haven't read a. Okay, I was just gonna say Japanese author, but it's not a Japanese author, so I'm just not gonna say it. But it's a really pretty book, and I really liked it. So in this book, Ayako likes talking in proverbs, right? So at the end of the book, there's a list of proverbs that Ayako uses. Isn't it cute? I hope that you get to read the book and feel the same sentiments that I felt, the same joy that I felt, the same anger to and a little bit of hatred towards Ayako in the beginning that I felt. And have a great day. Bye.